not funny.
Yeah, I don't.
Serious business. Here we're mapping. Come on.
I was trying to figure out what this question have to do with it.
Right.
Okay.
Anyhow, let's get back to business. Hey, what is up? Welcome back, Design Squad. And as promised in the previous episodes, I have a special guest, Helena. She's one of the power users for one app, which is quite common among reader types called Goodreads. It's for discovering rating books, I guess, and seeing what others like.
Yeah, I think for me it's probably more about logging, but yes.
What do you mean by logging?
As in it's more a place to keep track. If in a 6 months I want to remember, okay, what are the books about mushrooms that I've read, then I can just go back and look, like, okay, these are those books. Otherwise I might not remember what I've read.
And I think that's a very specific, interesting point for this type of user because Helena is reading a lot of books. I would say as a persona, as a user type, I think you read at least one book a week. Is that fair? Or?
Yeah.
But you can immediately see why a user like Helena is a power user for apps like that. Imagine that I am a UX researcher in Goodreads, and I've seen so many different reviews, which is actually true, that Goodreads is super crap at logging and tracking books. Imagine that we have a ton of data saying that users either didn't finish tracking it, they track it really simply and then don't provide any qualitative insight, because I know that you also add notes to it, right? When you review books.
Sometimes.
Okay, so this is something we can discover. Sometimes means that there is some ifs, meaning that you log it in certain situations but not the others, which is exactly the goal for UX research. And so let's start off with this. Now I'm talking in person. We could run this remotely. Maybe you are on your laptop. Maybe we are in a classroom scenario with a whiteboard. But I'm using Miro in this case, and to prepare with, and just from research, a few different stages, which is basically while reading a book, then you finish reading, then there is some sort of review time, actioning afterwards.
I think for me it's more about logging than review.
Immediately, as you can see, this is an insight, because for me as an outsider, I read books, but to me it's a reviewing process. For actual user, the UX copy would be logging the book. I could pass this to, let's say, to content producers or marketing, inform our own copy in the UI. Just on a very high level, what do you do after you log the information? That was to me a big question mark.
Okay, so I log the information and then I have a look at the reading challenge just to see where I am. So I'll just check, like, because I don't get too hung up on the number of books I read, but it's nice to see the check moving, and I especially like to. So I'll do two things. One is I'll check the reading challenge, which will say this is how many books you've read this year so far out of my goal target. And then sometimes I'll also, if it says 72 books, I might also Google year progress.
And this is a prime example where the users or participants in the session would go and start describing everything at once. And so try not to discourage them from opening up, but try to also direct it a little bit. Because you want to start by capturing the high level bits before you dive in.
Okay.
Otherwise, if we would dive in immediately, it's one way to skin a cat, but I think we kind of need to see the journey overall. And so what do you do after you check the reading progress?
So because I won't go from one book straight into another, like you want things to settle. But yeah, sometimes if I'm looking for a new book, I might open the app and
And as you can see, this is kind of completes the cycle on a very high level, where we could find a new book and then it kind of goes again and again and again, and that's what we're capturing in this life cycle. Correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think you engage with an app while reading or finishing reading. And this is something I knew from before, but it's always good to double check with the users. Even if, let's say, I'm a designer for that app, I would want to know what they do with the reading of a book, because perhaps the app should support that, and finishing reading, because maybe that transition should be enhanced so that your logging experience would be better. And this is, of course, I wouldn't tell you as a user, someone who I workshop with, but it's always good to highlight for you guys, because you then make connections on how to run it. And another bit is find the next book to read is all those 3 stages, I guess, how you do it with an app. Right off the bat, what I would do next, I would focus on what actions you take for reading the book. So how do you read your books?
on Kindle or physical. Or sometimes it's an audiobook as well.
Is it on the go? Do you have
no.
certain times when you read, or?
During the work week, yeah, it will be in the morning or in the evening. It used to be on my commute, but now it's just at home. So usually in the evening now. Sometimes on my lunch break.
Do you allocate time for reading?
Yeah, I think it has to be a particular type of free time, but yes. Because I wouldn't do, if I have free time in the morning, but I probably wouldn't read in the morning. It puts me in a kind of, just my mind in a different space, and then it's hard to start like a work day if I've sat on the couch reading the book. But when I used to read in my commute, I would read in the morning, and that would be fine.
And as you can see, I'm capturing some of the bits, but I also trying to paraphrase so it would make sense for UX or researching. I could capture everything. On a side you could also record what we're saying so you can go back. As you can see, I'm lightly threading it. I might get back to pick out the pain points, the opportunities, but I want to capture the kind of like the overarching landscape before going deeper. Could you walk me through a process of how, what do you do when you finish the book?
Okay, well, it depends on the setting. So if it's reading during the day, and if my phone is next to me, then I'll pick up my phone immediately and log it. Because I'm trying to think if there's like an exception, like if the book really touched me or something, then I might Google or look up something about it. Like that's definitely happened a few times. Or I just want to see if other people had the reaction that I did, so then I might just Google some reviews.
And this is something you might miss out if you just plow through and just go through without going deeper. And so this is the quote, for example, I could use to inform other bits in that. It in one capacity or the other, it could inform the opportunities down below and enrich a different bit. As you are talking, I would want to capture more insights. So for example, this is quite uncommon for me to just have one post-it note. Usually you would end up with a few at least per cell, so that you have bigger picture and complete picture.
That would also depend on the phone availability. But that might be, like, I might be more motivated to go get my phone, depending on, just like what it is. I guess sometimes it happens while I'm reading a book as well. I might look something up, especially if my phone is nearby. And just open the Goodreads app.
Well, where is the Goodreads app live? Could you show me on your phone?
Yeah, I have a special folder.
And so we really quickly captured key steps in the journey using the app. And could you kind of walk me through exactly what you do, since you did already off camera, but it would be good, I guess, for our viewers to understand what you do and why you do it.
So I open the app, then I search for the book usually. Sometimes I have to search a few times, or I have to enter a lot of information to get the book.
It's kind of sounds like a pain point to me. So you say that sometimes you have to look multiple times?
So it's more that I sometimes have to enter more information into the search bar if it has a very common. Sometimes I might even have to enter author's name, because it brings up, I think, 3 or 4 books when you search something. But it's happened to me before that my book wasn't in those, and I had to enter more information.
So it sounds to me like the search is not accurate or anything. What kind of annoys you from the app itself?
I mean later on, not in this part.
Okay, that's fair enough. Why do you need to select the shelf?
Because I don't know, otherwise it doesn't go to my read books. And with the shelf stuff, that did not finish is one of the pain points, because it's a kind of a hacky way to record books that you didn't finish.
What do you mean by hacky way?
Books, but ideally, I wish I could just tick on the book.
And that's an example of an opportunity immediately where users might tell you exactly, the things what ideally they would want to have.
Just to be clear, that's not it's not like I'm marking them out of the box. It's books that I started, but I'm not gonna finish them.
Okay, and so you have your own, this basically did not finish, basically crap books. Okay, so you mark it as read, right, as you said. What happens next?
Then it brings up the review screen, so then I can rate it and I can write a review if I want. A lot of reviews are really, really detailed. They're super long, and I don't want to write reviews that long. And then I think, mine aren't going to be that helpful if they're not long like that. It's almost like it would be good to have some sort of prompt sometimes, because then I might add information. How Google Maps prompts you, does this place have a parking lot? They're asking for specific information. and that sort of thing. If I knew that there was something missing, I would add it. And then I added the finish date, because that's really important, because that's how it gets logged in my progress, because it's based on the date.
So it doesn't detect automatically?
No.
Okay.
It wouldn't add the date if I didn't add it manually. It would just be blank.
Okay, so to me that sounds like another bit where maybe it's not your pain point, but something you might as a designer observe, that perhaps this manual process of tagging is unnecessary.
I do feel it's a bad thing. Sometimes it doesn't save it the first time. Then I refresh the page and it's still showing empty and I have to re-enter it. But I don't know how that relates to the year, if I'm ahead or not. Like that text underneath, I don't know if you can see, it says something like read 1.5 books per week for the rest of the year to complete. That never changes. Like that's not helpful text. So it doesn't really tell me anything.
What's your thinking behind that?
Well, because my goal is to read 100 books.
Right.
It's like 100%, right? So then I can see if the year is at 69% and I'm at 71% books, then I'm ahead of the year.
Well, how do you use that information?
It's more that it gets me excited because I'm usually ahead. So then I wonder what number I'm going to come to by the end.
So as you can see, this is quite interesting. This is kind of like derailed my whole thinking behind these steps I didn't even consider for. And we captured quite a few pain points as well as we went. Of course, there would be tons more if we would spend, an hour or two just digging deeper. But now overall, just talking about the books itself and this specific journey step, is there anything else which kind of like annoys you?
Just something. So many steps, I could just do all 3 at once.
I'm gonna track these kind of like a general bits, which you can then play back to business or use as the evidence as well. A sample size of 1 is never a given. This is a fact until it's proven wrong, and then you build on top of that map. How was your experience as a participant?
Yeah, pretty good. I feel like, I think I've said everything that I would have wanted to say.
If you enjoyed this session, would you be up for having more, let's say, research sessions like that, or user testing, or be involved for us to redesign the Goodreads app?
Yeah.
Would you be up for it?
Yeah.
Cool. And so that's another bit, it's kind of like I covered it in facilitation in a previous session. It's always good to ask for a permission for people to come in again. If you like this video, give a like, subscribe to this channel, leave a comment down below what you think of it. If you want more material like this, leave your questions, suggestions, and so forth. Check out the videos. I'm gonna leave them floating somewhere here around us on other material, or check previous sessions if you haven't seen them. And on that note, until next time.